There are summers that heal, and then there are summers that shatter. For the Evans family, this was supposed to be the healing kind. For nearly a year, Daniel Evans and his wife Lauren had clung to a simple dream, a vacation with their two kids, away from every demand, every worry, and every label. Daniel's work at the Bureau kept him on call at all hours, every day another headline, another crisis. Lauren's dental clinic in the city was just as relentless. Patients, payroll, paperwork. Their children, Jackson, 12, thoughtful, anxious, and Maya, 8, wild-hearted, always dancing, needed a break as much as their parents did. So when they pulled into a pastel-painted rental cottage under the palm trees of Edisto Beach, South Carolina, it felt like finally, life was letting them breathe. The cottage was everything the photos promised. Wide porch swing, sun-faded blue paint, salt in the air. As soon as the SUV rolled to a stop, Jackson and Maya were off. Racing, squealing, their voices high with freedom. Daniel, stretching his stiff back, couldn't help but smile at Lauren as she dragged herself from the passenger seat, her hair up and face flushed with tired relief. "Try not to break anything before we unpack," Daniel called out, only half joking. Lauren snorted. "They haven't listened in 6 hours. I don't think they'll start now." But as Daniel started unloading their bags, the street was watching. He could feel it. Not overtly, not with words, just the hush of curtains fluttering as a neighbor peeked out. The glance of a man walking his dog who didn't smile, didn't wave, just looked. Daniel's years in law enforcement had trained him to notice every detail, every flicker of suspicion. He was used to it in a suit, an earpiece, a government badge. But not here. Not on a vacation with his family, where all he wanted was to be invisible. "Come on, love," he whispered to Lauren. "Let's not give anyone a reason." He forced a wave and a polite smile to a couple ambling by. Nothing in return. Lauren muttered, "Just let it go." He knew she was right. It wasn't new, not for them, but it stung anyway. They moved quickly, setting up groceries, letting the kids pick rooms. Jackson demanded the bunk beds. Maya argued for the window view. Lauren lit a citronella candle on the porch. Daniel poured himself a small glass of wine and sat on the swing, listening to the distant sound of waves and the giggle of his daughter through the open window. That's when the first patrol car rolled down the street. Slow. Too slow. The uniform inside didn't wave, didn't blink, just watched as he passed. Daniel felt the muscles in his jaw tighten. Another car, different make, same slow crawl, same flat stare. Daniel leaned forward, feeling the vacation slip away from his shoulders. Lauren joined him, dish towel in hand, eyebrows drawn tight. "You seeing this?" He nodded. She said, "I'm calling the property manager if they don't stop circling." Before she could, another cruiser glided around the corner, stopping across the street. Doors opened. Officers stepped out, hands already close to their belts. "Stay calm," Daniel whispered, but his own voice trembled. He made a show of walking to the mailbox. Slow, deliberate, nothing in his hands, no sudden moves. The first cop didn't even acknowledge him. Daniel returned to the porch, where Jackson now waited, eyes wide. "Dad, they're still out there." "I know, son. Stay by your sister. Don't go off the porch." Before Daniel could get another word out, the shouting began. "Off the porch! Hands where we can see them!" Maya screamed. Jackson froze. Lauren stepped protectively in front of the children. Daniel raised his hands, voice steady. "This is our rental. I have the papers inside. We—" "Step down now!" a cop barked, gun drawn. Another officer rushed up, grabbed Daniel by the arm, slammed him into the railing, and wrenched his hands behind his back. "Wait! Wait!" Lauren cried, but they seized her too. "I have the reservation. I can show you." She was cuffed before she could finish. Jackson and Maya stood paralyzed, Jackson's arms around his sister as she sobbed. "Don't hurt them," Lauren pleaded as she was pinned to the porch. Daniel locked eyes with his son, searching for words. Any words. But all that came out was, "It'll be okay. You'll be okay." The neighbors watched from behind glass. Not one person intervened. Not one word of protest. One officer shoved Daniel down onto the grass, knee pressed painfully into his back. "Listen to me," Daniel said, fighting to keep his voice calm. "My name is Daniel Evans. I am a federal agent." "Stay quiet," the officer spat, tightening the cuffs. "They never checked the papers? They never asked for ID." Lauren begged, "Let me show you my license. My phone is inside." "Too late for that," another officer muttered. Jackson, trembling, asked, "Can I check on my mom?" "Get back inside," barked the cop. "He's 12, Daniel said. "He's just a kid. Let him see his mom." No response. The family was treated like criminals in the middle of their own vacation. "We got a call about a break-in," said a senior cop, finally stepping forward. "No license plate on your car. You match the description?" "What description?" Daniel demanded. He didn't need to ask. He already knew the answer. A black family in a nice house, not looking like they belonged. "You'll clear this up at the station," the cop said, as if this was mercy. Lauren's wrists were raw, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Our names are on the lease. The confirmation's on the kitchen counter. Please." It didn't matter. The officers dragged Daniel and Lauren to separate cars. Jackson clung to Maya, whispering, "Don't let them scare you. I'm here." Daniel, before being shoved into the squad car, looked back at his son. "Take care of your sister. I'm proud of you." From the back of the cruiser, Daniel pressed his forehead to the glass, shame burning hotter than fear. Not shame for himself, but shame that his kids had to see the world for what it really was. Far too soon. In the station, Daniel's cuffs cut into his skin. He heard Lauren's voice somewhere down the hall, fierce and desperate. He sat alone, the room humming with fluorescent lights and neglect. No one offered water, no one told him his rights. He was just another problem to be processed, not a father, not an agent. A rookie cop peeked in, barely 25, smirking. "You the FBI guy?" "Yes," Daniel said. "Special Agent Daniel Evans out of D.C. My badge is in the glove box of the black SUV you impounded." "Why didn't you say that earlier?" "I did," Daniel replied, holding the kid's gaze. "More than once." The officer shifted, suddenly uncertain. Let me check." He vanished. Minutes later, a sergeant entered, face carved from stone. "Your badge is in the car?" "Hanging in a leather holder left side." The sergeant left. 10, 15 minutes dragged by. Finally, the rookie returned, not smirking now. Agent Evans, sir. They found your ID. I just want to apologize. There was some misinformation." Daniel cut him off. "Don't insult both of us. It wasn't misinformation. It was a choice." As they uncuffed him, Daniel's fingers were shaking. Not from fear, but from holding in everything he wanted to say. Lauren, released, folded into him, anger vibrating in her bones. "They said it was a mistake. A neighbor called, said we looked suspicious. They said they were just doing their jobs." Daniel stared at the linoleum. "Their job, huh?" A man in a dress shirt, no uniform, no name, entered, sat across from them. "We've confirmed your identity. You have to understand, when we get a call from a neighbor—" "No," Daniel said, voice razor sharp. "You had 4 officers, 2 cruisers, a lease on the kitchen counter. You never even asked for it." The man cleared his throat, tried to retain authority. "We'll drop all charges. You'll get your car back." "Don't try to buy us off," Daniel snapped. "What you did in front of our kids, you don't fix that with a parking voucher." Before they left, Daniel made it clear. "I want a full written report, every badge number, every minute. And when I walk out, I'm calling my supervisor at D.C. I want the 911 call tape and body cam footage preserved, and you'd better explain to your officers how close they came to ending their careers." When Daniel and Lauren finally stepped outside, the sun had long since set. The porch was cold and empty, but the scars were just beginning to show. The Evans family's cottage felt colder when they returned that night, even though nothing had changed. The grocery bag still sat untouched on the counter, the lights still glowed softly in the hallway, but everything felt wrong. Jackson had fallen asleep on the porch swing, his arms wrapped tightly around Maya, who wouldn't let go of her brother's sleeve. When Daniel scooped her up, she stirred, her eyes searching his face for answers he didn't have. Lauren's voice broke as she hugged them both, pressing Maya's head into her shoulder. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. Jackson barely spoke, his voice flat. They didn't say anything. They just watched us. Daniel set the children down on the sofa, then turned back to the front door. Across the street, a porch light flicked on. A shadow moved behind a curtain, the same shape, the same window from earlier. He could feel the stare through the glass. Lauren followed his gaze, her mouth set in a hard line. You think that's the one who called? Maybe, but it doesn't matter now. It does to me, Lauren whispered. I want them to see we made it back. Inside, Daniel found the paperwork just where he'd left it. Rental agreement bold with Lauren's name. Every detail in order. He clutched it in his hand until the paper creased. He picked up his phone, thumb hovering over the contact for his supervisor. Lauren watched, silent. Daniel stepped onto the porch and dialed. When the line connected, his voice was low but steely. It's Evans. I need to flag an incident. Edisto Beach, South Carolina. Civil complaint, multiple officers, family at risk, requesting immediate internal review, body cam footage preserved, and a 911 call recording pulled before it disappears. He paused, listening. No, this isn't a work matter. This is personal. They came after my family. Back inside, Lauren was tucking Maya into bed, brushing her daughter's curls back and humming softly. The little girl stared up at her, wide-eyed. Why did they do that, Mommy? We didn't do anything wrong. Lauren's hand trembled as she smoothed the blanket. They were wrong, honey, and I will never let anyone hurt you. You did nothing wrong. Jackson lingered in the hallway, arms folded, eyes on his father. Dad, what if you weren't here? What if it was just me and Mom? Daniel's heart twisted. He kneeled down, looking Jackson in the eye. I don't know, son, but I do know this. We don't let them scare us into silence. We tell the truth. We don't let them take that from us. Late that night, after Lauren had fallen asleep beside Maya, Daniel sat alone at the kitchen table, his laptop open, fingers poised above the keys. He had written hundreds of incident reports in his career, but never one that felt like this. He wrote down every detail, the time, the faces, the shouts, the humiliation, the way Maya's voice had cracked, the grip of Jackson's hands, Lauren's tears. He wrote it all, not as an agent, but as a father. A soft knock at the door startled him. Daniel moved quietly, peeking through the peephole. The young officer from earlier, the one who had first mocked his badge, stood outside, shifting uncomfortably from foot to foot. In his hand was Daniel's FBI badge, returned at last. Daniel opened the door only a crack. The officer looked down, struggling for words. I wanted to give this back in person. I didn't feel right just leaving it at the department. Daniel did not reach for it. Why? He asked, voice low. The officer swallowed. I saw the body cam footage. I saw how it looked. I'm sorry, sir. We were wrong. Daniel took the badge without a word. He closed the door gently, locking it. Lauren, now awake, looked up from her phone. Was it the police? Yes, he brought my badge. Anything else? He said he saw what we saw. He apologized. Lauren snorted softly. Not enough. Morning crept in with gray sunlight. Daniel's phone rang before sunrise. A Washington, D.C. number. He slipped out onto the dew-soaked lawn, answering quietly. Agent Evans. Daniel, it's Carmen Vale. His supervisor's voice was gentle, grave. I read your report. It's something. Do you want us to go public with this? Daniel hesitated, feeling the world tilt beneath his feet. Not yet. Let me give them a chance to do the right thing. But I won't wait forever. Carmen replied, I need you to know the footage from a neighbor's doorbell cam is spreading online. The story's out there. It's going viral. Daniel froze. How long? Half an hour, maybe less. You're going to get calls, Daniel. A lot of calls. She was right. By the time Daniel came back inside, his inbox was exploding. Civil rights lawyers, activists, journalists, even an old Quantico professor. They'd seen it. They were on his side. What do you want us to do? Many asked. Lauren was already scrolling through her phone, her hands shaking with the force of her anger. Did you see this? It's already got 100,000 views. People are trying to figure out who you are. The Charleston News has picked it up. It's everywhere. Daniel nodded. They'll know soon enough. At 10 a.m., the Edisto Beach Police Department released a terse statement. We are aware of an incident involving our officers responding to a citizen's call about suspicious activity. An internal review is underway. No apology, no names, just bureaucratic fog. Lauren spat. They're hoping it blows over. Daniel, lips pressed tight, sat at the kitchen table and began drafting a formal letter to the Edisto Beach Police Department Internal Affairs Office. 3 pages, point by point. Badge numbers, body cam footage, physical evidence, abuse of force, trauma to children, refusal to verify identity. He copied the FBI's Office of Professional Responsibility for good measure. It was nearly noon when there was another knock at the door. This time, it was not a police officer, but the neighbor from across the street, the man who had stood behind his curtains the night before. He was pale, older, dressed in crisp khakis and a tucked-in golf shirt. I saw everything last night. Just wanted to say I'm sorry, I guess, he stammered. Lauren's eyes narrowed. Were you the one who called the police? The man looked away. I didn't know what was happening. We don't get many rentals on this block. It's usually quiet. Daniel stepped forward, calm but unyielding. Let me be clear. You saw a black family carrying groceries into a rental house. No shouting, no broken windows, no weapons. And your instinct was to call for help, not to introduce yourself. I didn't mean for it to get out of hand. But it did, Daniel answered. And next time you feel afraid, maybe ask yourself what you're really afraid of. Because it sure as hell isn't us. The man nodded, shame burning in his cheeks, then shuffled back across the street. Lauren closed the door firmly behind him. Coward, she muttered. The rest of the day crawled by. The phone rang again, this time a local news reporter, then another from a national outlet. By dusk, the story was on every major news network. Daniel's name was out. FBI agent detained by local police on vacation. Body cam and viral footage raised questions about bias. The headlines kept coming. That night, Daniel sat at the kitchen table, watching his children play a board game, the television muted. Lauren studied him from across the room. Are you going to speak out? He nodded quietly. I have to, because the next family might not have a badge in the glove box. 3 days later, Daniel stood in a suit and tie in Washington, D.C., beneath the cold light of a press room, 2 civil rights lawyers by his side, a representative from the FBI's Public Affairs Office on the other. Cameras clicked. Reporters whispered. He faced the microphones, hands steady. My name is Special Agent Daniel Evans. 17 years of federal service. 3 nights ago, I was thrown to the ground in front of my children because a neighbor thought my family didn't belong in the house we rented. The responding officers didn't ask for our ID. They didn't check our reservation. They just saw us, heard the words suspicious, and acted as if we were a threat. He paused, letting the silence ring. My badge was in the glove box. My credentials were on file, but none of it mattered. Not until the handcuffs were on. I'm speaking publicly because it shouldn't take a federal badge to be treated like a human being. Too many black families go through this without the resources to fight back. That night, the video hit 1 million views. The headlines shifted. The Evans family story was everywhere, and the police department was under fire. But Daniel didn't care about headlines. He cared about change. The fallout came quickly. 48 hours after Daniel Evans' press conference, the Edisto Beach Police Department held their own. Short, stiff, their chief reading from a cue card. We acknowledge procedural mistakes were made during the detention of Special Agent Daniel Evans and his wife Lauren. The department is conducting a full review of response protocols. 2 officers have been placed on administrative leave pending further investigation. Lauren stood behind Daniel in their living room, arms crossed tight as the statement played on television. Jackson hovered behind her, frowning. Administrative leave, he repeated, his voice full of disbelief and something harder, something Daniel had hoped he'd never hear in his son. Contempt. Daniel exhaled. They call it damage control, son. They want everyone to move on, to forget. But no one forgot. Not this time. Civil rights groups from across the country called for independent oversight. A Charleston city councilwoman posted a video demanding police accountability. Even the owner of the rental cottage sent a personal email to Lauren. "We're so sorry. Your next stay is free whenever you want it." Lauren deleted the message. "We're not coming back," she said, her voice as sharp as broken glass. And yet the world kept spinning. Reporters called, podcasts wanted interviews, old friends reached out. Through it all, Daniel kept his focus. Not revenge, not anger, but the stubborn, patient work of telling the truth. He accepted every interview, every panel, every chance to explain. Not just for his family, but for every family who'd ever been told, "You don't belong." "It wasn't just the badge," Daniel said on national TV. "It was our skin. That's why we were presumed guilty. The only reason I'm here to talk about it is because I had a way to prove my innocence. And most people don't get that chance." Some nights the weight was too much. Daniel would sit alone on the porch swing, moonlight silvering the grass, and replay the worst moments in his mind. The rough hands, Lauren's scream, Maya's fear. But each time, when he thought he'd break, Lauren would join him, sliding her hand into his. She didn't need to say anything. Her presence was enough. Maya, with a child's resilience, began drawing again. Her pictures grew bolder, more colorful. A family of 4, arms wide, standing before a bright sun. In one, the little stick figure girl wore a superhero cape. Jackson, older, quieter, needed more time. He asked to learn how to write a letter to the mayor, then the chief of police. One night he came to Daniel, paper trembling in his hand. "I want them to know how it felt," he said. "I want them to listen." Daniel read the letter line by line, a child's truth written in a child's hand. No anger, just clarity. "I saw my parents on the ground. I felt afraid for them and for me. I want people to know we belong." He sent it. The mayor wrote back, and even invited Jackson and Maya to City Hall. "Your voices matter," she wrote. "I am listening." But the battle wasn't just in letters and news cycles. At home, the real work began. Healing the invisible wounds, rewriting the story in ways that restored what was almost lost. One evening, just before the children returned to school, Daniel took Jackson out to the backyard. The city lights of D.C. made the stars hard to see, but they sat together in the warm dark, listening to the hush of the world. "Dad?" Jackson's voice was soft, uncertain. "Why did they look at us like that? Like we were dangerous?" Daniel thought a long time before answering. People are taught to be afraid of what they don't understand, and sometimes they believe lies for so long, they forget to see the truth. "Even if you're good? Even then, son. But that's why we keep showing up. We tell our story. We make them see us for who we are." Jackson was quiet, but Daniel could see a new resolve in his eyes. "I want to help people see better, Dad. I want them to know." Daniel put his arm around his son, holding him close beneath the hazy sky. "You already are. Every time you speak, you help the world change." Back inside, Lauren watched them through the kitchen window, a gentle smile breaking through the shadows of worry. She'd found her own way to heal, organizing a local meeting of parents to talk about the dangers of suspicious neighbor calls, connecting with other families who'd suffered quietly. She invited the mayor, the police chief, and anyone who would listen. The first meeting was small, but Lauren's words resonated. "We are not here to destroy anyone. We are here because silence lets this happen again. We're here for our children." A neighbor who had called the police on another family years before stood up, voice shaking. "I never thought about how scared you must have been. I'm sorry." Lauren nodded, her forgiveness real but uncompromising. "Next time, knock on the door. Ask our names. It's that simple." The story took on a life of its own. Body cam footage was released, the truth undeniable. Daniel, calm and compliant. Lauren pleading, Jackson and Maya terrified. The comments on the video were a tidal wave. Some furious, some heartbroken, some finally waking up to a reality they had never wanted to see. By the end of the month, the state legislature announced new guidelines for handling suspicious activity calls, requiring more verification before officers could detain anyone. The town council voted to fund community outreach instead of new patrol cars. And in homes across America, families watched the Evans family story and saw themselves. Some were angry, some were inspired, some were finally ready to talk. But for Daniel, change was never fast enough. There were days when the injustice felt like an open wound. He worried for his children, for the children he didn't know, for every father who might not be there to stand up. He started speaking at schools. At one middle school in Baltimore, he shared his story, and at the end, a small girl with braids stood up and said, "I want to be an agent like you, so I can help families too." The room erupted in applause. The final meeting with the police chief was quiet, tense. The chief, an older white man, wary but willing to listen, offered a hand. "You have my word things will change. It starts with me." Daniel shook his hand but looked him in the eye. "Don't let it end with you." Months passed. The world moved on, as it always does, but the Evans family was not the same. Jackson joined the student council and started a club for courageous conversations. Maya wrote a poem about superheroes that was published in the school newsletter. Lauren returned to her clinic, but on her office wall hung a drawing by Maya. Four stick figures standing together, hands linked, faces smiling beneath a bright, unclouded sun. On the anniversary of that terrible night, the family returned to Edisto Beach. They didn't rent the same house, didn't drive the same car, but they walked together down to the shore, hand in hand, feet sinking into the soft, forgiving sand. The ocean was endless, unbothered by the wounds of men. Daniel looked at his family, strong, unbroken, resilient, and felt something powerful rise in his chest. Not anger, not even pride, but hope. The unkillable kind. The kind that refuses to die even when the world tells you it should. As the sun set, Jackson looked up and asked, "Dad, do you think things really change?" Daniel thought for a long moment, then answered, "Not unless we make them." And for the first time in a long while, he believed it. The ending that lingers. Some stories are meant to shake us awake. If you're watching this feeling angry, heartbroken, or inspired, don't let it fade. Start the conversation at your own table. Ask the questions that matter, even if the answers are uncomfortable. Change never begins with comfort, but with courage. You don't need a badge or a title or permission to stand up for what's right, just the will to do it. For every child who grows up too fast, for every parent who fights to protect their dignity, for every neighbor who chooses to see, let this be the story that moves you to act. Because justice isn't given, it's demanded together. And love is the power that carries us home, no matter how many times the world tries to keep us out.